You're listening to the La Rock Life Podcast, where hosts Michael and Laura explore relationships, adventure, freedom, and just some all-around real and raw conversations. Drawing from their 17 years together with a bit of sarcasm, humor, tears, a few and lots of love. They deep dive into the male and female perspective on relationships and navigate the highs and lows of life together. Sit back, grab your love mug, and let's get into today's conversation.
All right, babe. Episode 59. What are we talking about?
We're going to talk about travel, adventures.
Yes.
Keeping the what?
Well, just keeping the play, keeping the adventure, keeping the adventure seeking.
Yeah. And I was just listening to our intro there, and it talks about, what does it say that we talk about? Adventure, freedom, relationships, adventure, and freedom.
Yeah.
I butchered that though. And I'm like, yeah, we haven't talked about adventure for a long time. I don't think it's kind of been like heavier stuff, or like we did the Would You Rather a couple weeks back. But yeah, we haven't really like talked about adventure. I mean, we haven't really been on an adventure. Well, that's a lie. We moved to Kamloops last year and then moved back, and that was an adventure. But before that, before having kids, we adventured a lot. Or having a child, we adventured a lot. So I think it's just really important to talk about that. And then really like keeping, like you said, the play, the fun, the adventure is just so important for relationships to thrive. And it doesn't have to mean traveling to the other side of the world or really traveling anywhere. You can have an adventure in your own backyard, really. But
yeah. Well, that's what we've been doing lately, right? Just traveling out to like Banff and traveling around that area. And then obviously that Kamloops one was a good adventure. Completely different, right? Just uprooted us and went, which I shouldn't say completely different because I'm pretty good at uprooting us and going. But like you said before that, I mean, traveling, living halfway across the world for a few years, right? And let's get into that and just share some of those experiences and adventures. And that was obviously before we had a kid. But at the same time, it kind of, we've seen a lot of people with kids when they were traveling, right? Doing that.
Yeah, it's not like kids are the hindrance.
No,
we just
not
chose
at all.
to do that before we have kids. But there's lots of growth in adventure, and I mean a deeper connection through it as well. But there's also not good things that happen through travel.
No,
so.
And there's a lot of problem solving that has to take place, right? And then, I mean, when you're
Sleepy
out,
nights.
oh yeah. And then, I mean, you take for granted, or I took for granted, right? Or just ignorance, I guess. Call it ignorance, just being in Western Canadian farm boy, blah, 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 right? Like there was times where was it? We're in Berlin, I think. Yeah, Berlin. And then we always made it a point to like go to Airbnbs, right? Or stay at Airbnbs instead of staying in hotels. And which is awesome, by the way. That's definitely the way to go, I think.
Airbnbs?
Yeah. Like you just get to see the real world, right? And get to see things and meet cool people. And I think anyway.
Except what did I say to someone just the other day that like, it's cool until you feel like you're in like a great murderous TV show scene.
I don't know if I like
in like Europe.
It's tricky, right? Like I don't know if there's a dark back alley, I'll go down it kind of thing. So yeah, come on, Laura, I'll be fine. But I don't know. It was a great way to meet a lot of cool people, and it was very interesting. But yeah, back to that Berlin. So my ignorance of being in Berlin, and when we were stayed in Airbnb, we're off the beaten path. So we're like, I don't know what you want to call it, in town, I guess, right? Yeah. Just in a neighborhood. And what was it? Is that the one where you look out the window and it's like all those prostitutes working too? Is that Berlin?
No, you didn't look out the window. We walked to that like market. That evening market, remember? Like, and we walked past all the prostitutes with their like men, not their men, but like their what
pimps,
are they called?
Or their Johns?
Pimps. Yeah, they're pimps.
Yeah.
We're like sitting in the vehicles, and then they were all like on the street, and we're just like walking past, and like, yeah, small town Canadian girl. I'm like, oh my God, we are like not in my comfort zone. Like, we're gonna get picked up and brought into the sex slave. Like,
boom, sex slave. But with that, it was it was going to like a corner store and trying to get, I don't know what the fuck. I just tried to buy something.
That was the one where we stayed in that apartment upstairs in the store, but with that guy. Remember, like some Airbnb things are super interesting because you sometimes stay with people.
Yeah.
So there was a guy
Especially
who just
in
had like
Europe,
a spare
right?
bedroom and we were staying there, but we didn't actually end up seeing him, I don't think, or maybe we did. I don't know. It was all like really weird. Those are the
Yeah.
kinds of scenarios where I was like, we could just get killed in our sleep tonight. No big deal.
Yeah, I'll just walk it off. But yeah, so then going there and like the store owner, because we were already in Europe for a while, right? And like living in London, obviously an English speaking country and place, and it's London, right? So everything was just kind of normal or whatever. But then going there and trying to buy something or trying to do something and like trying to speak his language, like trying to speak English to him and just like, and me not getting that, you know, English is the only language I know. And I just couldn't get my point across. And he was like a grumpy old fucker. So it was just like, whatever, pretty aggressive, whatever, like, so be it. But
A grumpy old German man.
yeah, but that just like put everything in perspective for me of just like how ignorant I was to everything and how you think English or you think this Western culture of ours is like everything is be all ends all, but
Yeah.
it's not.
Your privilege.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's like, I'm the dumb one that not like he probably knows English and probably he's probably just being an asshole, but he probably knows English and knows all these other languages and I don't, right? And it just, that one was a real eye opener for me. That was a really humbling experience. There's a lot of them along the ways, but that was definitely one of them. What was, do you remember that Berlin trip much? Like what was one of the things for you? I shouldn't even say that Berlin trip in general.
Yeah, because I was like, the Berlin trip, really what stands out for me is the prostitutes and walking down there in the dark.
So let's say for me, so that was a humbling experience for me. What would be one of the, in our travels, what would be the one, like, not humbling, well, humbling or eye-opening, like really eye-opening. And like, that one really changed my life, I think. It was pretty profound on me. Doesn't sound like much, but it really had a big effect.
Okay, so mine would probably be a bit different because two come to mind. I don't think humbling would be the word, maybe more of like a connection to people that I do not speak their language. So remember when we went to Croatia, and again, we stayed at an Airbnb, but they had like, it's like a stacked house kind of, and each floor was essentially like its apartment. And so the couple who owned it lived on like the bottom area. And then I think there was like two more apartments and we were renting out the one. And we worked with their daughter, like she did all the Airbnb stuff. So we always talked with her through Airbnb, but she lived in Paris.
Yeah.
So she wasn't actually there. But so we get to Croatia and like it was lined up that her dad was going to pick us up from the airport. And I don't even remember how that worked for like how we knew
I think he had like it was like a sign.
Did he
or
have a
something.
sign
I'm
with their
pretty
name?
sure, yeah.
I don't remember, but going to their house and like just being so welcomed. Like I think that was just it just felt really amazing that like we don't speak the same language. Like I don't think we could really correspond with them very easily, right? Like they knew a little bit of English, but it was their daughter who knew more and she wasn't there. She just did the business side of it online. But I still like to this day, and I think about them and it's been like how many years later, I think like 6 years later, I still think about them as like our Croatia mom and dad because they like fell in love with us and we were only there for like 5 or 6 days. But he drove us to the grocery store because it was really windy. And he's like, I'll take you to the grocery store to get your groceries. Although I don't think he spoke English. So either way.
He did a little bit, but I remember that because they were on a hill, right? Because we're on the hill and you could see like the whole, I don't even know what it's a sea, whatever sea that is.
Oh yeah.
Like we had a great view of the water, but I remember his like little hatchback and we had to like, he would always
make
like,
a run
here we
for
go.
it.
And we had to like make a run in it. It was like the old 4-speed. Or just, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, but they just like really took care of us. And then like the wife, you could tell she missed her daughter, and her daughter was my age and her only child, who then lived in Paris and they live in Croatia. And she just really took to us. And like we were there for your birthday and we came back the one night. You must have to put your birthday into Airbnb or something.
Yeah,
I think we did.
know.
Because they knew it was your birthday and we like came back the one day and there was like chocolates and a few things and like I think a card that said,
well, there's a
Happy
bottle of
birthday,
wine.
Michael.
I remember
Was there
that.
a bottle of wine?
Yeah.
And then when we went to leave, she was like almost crying and like hugging us and was like, you go make babies and come back and bring them to me. Like clearly just like her daughter was like single 30s living in Paris, like old, like Catholic family, right? Like she was just like hardcore wanting some grandkids and stuff. So she totally fell in love with us. But for me, I don't know. It was just like the fact that these are different people, like different people in different countries. They don't speak our language. We don't know them from anything, but it was like a human connection that can happen with so many barriers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was pretty special. We'll have to, because it's like turning into an ad for Airbnb. We're gonna have to ask, because we put in. You always look through your history. Like you look, I always like look through our history every once in a while. Like, oh yeah, I forgot about those places.
Yeah.
But yeah, we might have to find that place and like take over Lennox. Like, check out Croatia. Here you go.
Yeah, and then there was the other one too in Iceland. When we stayed in Iceland, that guy
came to mind. Yeah.
Yeah, there was another. We never met the wife, but it was the guy, and he reminded me lots of like my dad because we stayed in these little like huts on their property. But same thing. He was just like on our step all the time, like telling us where we need to go, brought a map, showed us how to get there, the sites we need to go see, and like always checking in on us. And stuff.
The wife actually, she was the one that. I'm quite certain was the one that told me about the sticks. And I swear to God, she did it as a joke.
What sticks?
We had to walk because it was right on the coast, right? So we were like right on the coast, and there's like there's literally a drop off. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, 100 feet away. But there was like a bump up, and you can walk around on there, and there's like grass and all this stuff. But she's like telling us they had to walk with these sticks up because I can't remember what kind of birds, but the birds, their nest in the grass, and then they would swoop down at you. So if you had the stick, they would swoop at the stick instead of your head. And I was like, I was walking around. I was like, these motherfuckers are probably taking pictures. Like, we got it.
Stupid tourists.
We got another one.
Yeah, but no birds swooped at our heads, so whatever. Regardless. Good. But yeah, so same thing with that guy. Like it was just to like. I don't know. It just makes me feel less alone in the world, or like almost that the world is less scary than we're made to believe it is, right? And strangers. And it's like, no, like, yeah, there's bad people out there, but there's a lot of really amazing people out there with really big hearts. And I don't know. That was just kind of cool too.
Yeah, the Croatia one for sure, because my idea of Croatia is always like, you see it in movies or action movies, and it's like the bad guys from Croatia, and it's like dark, gloomy place. But you get there, and it's like the nicest place in the world. The water is like blue and green, and obviously meeting those people and the way they treated us is like, okay, I have a different idea of what Croatia is and how it works, right?
Yeah. And I think that's probably my favorite piece about Airbnbs is that you meet the locals generally. I mean, you can rent properties from people that you never see them, but you're still in more of a local area. So you live more of like a local. But I actually loved those times where we were really close to the people who had the Airbnb because then they actually like showed us stuff and showed us around. And it was like not just a tourist experience. Like, yeah, you're still a tourist, but you see more of like their everyday life, which I think is just so much more wholesome in traveling.
It is, right? And I mean, there's times, the Scotland one comes to mind. Is that the one where you've seen a ghost or something?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've seen it.
And that was like, that was cool just to see someone's house the way it was. She was like, it's kind of like, I don't even know what you call it, Art Deco. Like there was just stuff everywhere, and it was like bright red, and like,
yeah,
the decorations were just crazy. But she was there, but we didn't stay upstairs, I think.
Yeah,
but they were
her
home.
Husband were like downstairs
Because we had breakfast with her one time.
Yeah, we met them.
Once or twice. Yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, that was one of the crazy experiences because that one was like quite like, again, we say in town, I don't know, just in a residential area. So we had to take at least one or two buses to get to the touristy spots.
And
right?
Walk a bit.
Yeah, and walk a bit. And we were doing the old classic Mike traveling where we'd come, it's like super dark out, and it's like, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. And I thought I was tripping balls. I don't remember everything that leads up, so it's probably a bad story to tell. But I don't remember. I
literally have
whole
like chills
details,
down my back. It wasn't normal. It wasn't right. There was something walking towards us.
And it was like 100% like fucking unsolved mysteries. Like there was like
a black
dark
cape,
but then there was like light, like the street lights, and there was like foggy or misty.
Yeah.
And it was like,
because there was like a hurricane or like the after effects of the hurricane or something.
Yeah, that was
Scotland.
Yeah, that was bad there.
That was in Edinburgh. But yeah, there was like this like dark figure walking towards us, but then like, and we just assumed it was a person. And I'm just like getting so many chills going down as we're talking about that. It's like still connected. And then as we walked past it, I remember you and I were both like, what the fuck? Cause like the face was like white or like,
I can't
like
comprehend.
Ghost white.
Yeah.
Like,
I couldn't tell you what, fucking, I don't know. if I was by myself, then I'd be like, chalk it up to like, oh, you're just crazy or whatever. But
Yeah.
you were with me. And then afterwards you're like, what the fuck, man? What was that? And you're like, I don't know. But I honestly, I don't know. If that was just someone messing around or something or what it was, but I can't.
Like it wasn't near Halloween.
No. And I don't remember like, I don't know. It's just eerie stuff, man.
I mean, there's weird people out there, but yeah, like I said, it gives me like shivers down my back just even thinking about that again. So like, yeah, I don't think that was normal. I didn't sleep well at her place after that. We had like 2 more nights or something, or 1 more night, but yeah, I kind of forgot about that. But I guess like I just think in a relationship, like adventuring like that, like getting out of your comfort zone is just really important, right? Like not getting stuck in the mundane day-to-day life, because well, we have these stories to tell and reminisce on with each other like for the rest of our life, right? I mean, they might get a little more blurry, those specific ones as we get older, but we can always make more. But we were talking before too, like it's not all roses and butterflies either, right? Like was.
I remember the Paris one. That one really fucking just makes me angry. Going to Disneyland.
Oh yeah.
Because that was another chalk it up to language barrier stuff, right? Because in Paris, you take was it the train or the bus? It was a bus, right? Or a train? No, it was a train. So you have to get on a train. You get a ticket to go to Disneyland because Disneyland's like right on the outskirts of wherever we're. Like we're in Paris, but it was a bit of a jaunt to get there. And freaking machines. I guess my own fault. I don't know English or what, or if I didn't push the right buttons. But to get a ticket, everything's just kiosks or like ATM kind of deals, and I couldn't figure out to get a ticket to get to Paris or to get to Disneyland, and then. There was a guy, like there's a bit of a lineup, and then this guy just came, like he was kind of irritated, and then he just did it all for me. Like he was being a nice guy. So I was like, oh, fuck, deadly. So and there's all zones, right? So we're like, call it Disneyland was in like zone 6 or 7 or whatever, and there's all different tickets up to those. And then he just gave us the tickets. So I gave him some cash, like, oh, thanks, buddy. But he didn't say anything back. And then we just went on our merry way. And it was a zone 1 ticket, right? So it gets you like
you way overpaid it.
Yeah, I way overpaid for the zone 1 ticket, and it gets us like the inner city, but it still gets you on the train. So it opens up the door to get you in there. So we get on the train and just go to Disneyland. It was like jacked ass, right? Like, yeah, go to Disneyland. It's gonna be awesome. And get to Disneyland, and then what was it? The gate
wouldn't open.
No, the gate wouldn't open with our ticket.
Open the gate, yeah.
Then,
so technically, we would have had to go to the kiosk with like a person, and then they would have informed us that we were scammed, and then we would have had to pay like that much more money in order to have gotten through to that zone. But there was people like pushing a gate open. There was no people around.
There was no people. So someone walked through, and then I just grabbed the gate. Yeah. So there's people walking through. So people walked through and then just grabbed the gate and held it. And then Laura jumped and went through, and then I just went through. It's like, oh, here we go. So still to buy a return ticket.
Yeah.
Because we had a return.
We thought we had a return, but we didn't. So we did. But yeah, so totally got scammed. So yeah, like there is shit that happens that, but I think, again, like you said, that's kind of humbling, right? Because you're like, wow, yeah, I mean, I guess it contradicts what I just said about like, oh, we meet these wonderful people.
Well, no, there's always shit. Paris is one of the most craziest places, especially being, like I say, like just farm kids from Saskatchewan, right? I always thought Paris was like this crazy, wild, romantic place, and French, like everyone's friendly, whatever. But you get there and it's like the Eiffel Tower. Well, we just went there after like that big incident. So
it was literally like 2 weeks after the Paris attacks,
something like that, right? So there's army people everywhere. So that's not a very fair representation. But even right after that happened, it's still like it's like a carnival. Like there's just people everywhere trying to scam you, trying to sell you trinkets, they're playing like that 3-card game. Like you have to find the card or whatever. Like you see those everywhere. There's like fucking that ball in a cup. Like there's all that stuff, and there's like you hear so many stories. It didn't happen to me anyway, but you hear a lot of like pickpocket stories there. Mm-hmm. And then all the restaurants where you think, oh, this is going to be awesome. We're going to go to a romantic dinner in Paris or whatever else. But it's all like these middle-aged waiters, like guys, and they're all so grumpy and pissed off because they didn't speak French, and they're just like assholes. So it was a crazy experience. It's like had one thing in mind, and then whatever Paris was kind of that. But at the same time,
romanticize it. Yeah,
we got backstage at Cirque du Soleil, so that was cool.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So that was for me. That saved Paris for me.
I was nervous the whole time we were in Paris because I was like, we're going to get attacked.
Yeah, when you went to the circus, you're like, this is a large group of people.
Yeah, because that's what happened, right? It was a concert that there was like
it was a concert,
shooting or something.
Yeah.
And then one of the other attacks was like, didn't somebody, I can't remember if they shot or they drove into people eating outside, right?
There was a lot of that over there. Yeah.
But that was that same night. And like everywhere in Paris, like you eat outside generally. Like there's indoor, but a lot of people are just around the building, right?
Yeah.
And we were eating there with our friend who we were at Cirque du Soleil with, or got us into Cirque du Soleil. And I was just like, oh my gosh, we're going to get killed. But I mean, really, that was probably the safest time to be in Paris because there was like on all of the alert, right?
Yeah.
But so, I mean, yeah, there's risk, but I think that the risk is what like opens your eyes to bigger things in the world. Like you said, for us, just small town people who had only been on all-inclusive vacations, it was definitely a lot more eye-opening. I mean, we haven't like traveled through the jungle or like gone to Africa or things like that, which would be a whole other interesting experience for sure. But we definitely did the Europe thing, which was fun and interesting. We didn't do the whole like hostel backpacking type thing.
No,
I think we're too old for that.
We stayed at any hostels? We stayed at a few, right? We stayed at a hostel in Kelowna.
I was going to say, no, I think that was in Canada. And like pregnant. Just wanted to really like live that up. No, I don't think we stayed at a hostel in Europe.
There's a place in London I actually used to go for. We went for lunch a few times and it was like a hostel, but they had a restaurant on the bottom, restaurant and bar kind of thing. That's about the closest I got to a hostel.
Yeah, I don't really remember.
But yeah.
So yeah, there's like all that, right? I mean, we could sit here and talk about all that stuff forever, but one of the other things that came up when we were just talking about like risks involved, and I thought I was alone in this, but like I'm scared to fly. I don't know why. The first time I ever flew was to Jamaica when I was like in my early 20s. When my brother and his wife got married there. And the flight there, I was so excited. And like, because I had never been in a plane before and I just thought it was like the best thing. And it was great the whole way there. I was never scared. I kind of blame it on my cousin because he had like flying anxiety and they came from Saskatchewan and met us in Calgary. And then we all flew from Calgary to Jamaica. And I remember him being like very anxious on the plane. And so I think that I just didn't even like consider being anxious on a plane until I seen him. And I was like, what are we anxious about? But then it was when we came home because for some reason it was like flying in the dark. We didn't fly in the dark on the way there. But we flew in the dark. I think we even took off in the dark from Jamaica. Yeah, we would have because it gets so dark so early there, right? That we took off in the dark and something weirded me out. And then just the rest of the way, I was like, I just don't want to be on here anymore. And then I just made up my mind that I was nervous about flying. So I've always been afraid of it. I mean, moving to London was like, that was a big leap for me because it was like, oh my God, that's a long flight. And that was part of the reason why I was like, let's go Icelandair because it's only 6 hours and I know I can handle 6 hours on a plane because I've done 6-ish to go to like Jamaica, Bahamas, stuff like that. But to go like the full 9 or 9.5 or whatever from like Calgary right to London, I'm like, I couldn't do that. So at least we got to fly to Iceland, get out of the plane, be there for a bit. And then I think it was 3 hours from Iceland to London. But so just saying that I have like a fear around flying, and you would have thought it would get better the more we've done it. And it did, and it didn't, but my hands always get like super clammy, like make you hold them like, oh my God. One time I flew to the States without you. It was for like a convention and I was just with some girls and we were on a small plane from like Chicago to Pennsylvania. And there was a big storm and we were like driving through lightning and you could like see it out the window and you could like hear the cracking and then like the plane would shake. And I was like, oh my God, I am for sure dying. We had to make an emergency land in this other town. And I was just like, I'm done. Like, get me out of here. Like, I will rent a car and I will drive to the like place we need to get to because we were close. And they're like, we're just going to wait it out on the tarmac for a little while, which we did for like an hour and a half. And then they're like, okay, the storm has cleared. We're good to like take off and get there. And it would have been like a 15-minute flight. And I was just like, no, can't they open the door and let me out of here? I wasn't like freaking out. I can keep myself pretty cool, calm and collected, but that was what was going inside because I just like did not want to go back into that. It just like feels so out of control, I guess, probably is the biggest thing for me. But anyways, what I'm getting at is remember our last flight we've ever been on when we flew home from Mexico a few years ago? And we hit like the worst turbulence I've ever hit over the Gulf of Mexico. And our plane was literally like bouncing and banging, and people were crying and screaming, and it was dark. And I was like, for certain we were dying.
I kind of came to grips with it too a little bit. I was like, oh, this might happen. I think is like
my life is literally ending over the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, I really did. I was like, well, obviously we were holding hands and just doing our thing, but I really thought that I was like, didn't want to obviously show you or tell you, I was like, but it's like, I'm pretty sure we're gonna die here. It's like you play that little movie in your head. Like, did I kind of do some of this? Like, did I do life? Did I do whatever? Right. And I was okay with it a little bit. Like I harp on that too, like being okay with death, but
I know. Well, okay. So there's two things I want to say about
that happens.
Yeah, until you're stuck in a tin plane in the air and you're bouncing all over the place. And that was like the movies when like bad things happen, like the wing gets torn off or like piece of the plane opens up. I don't know. It was horrendous. I've never been in a plane since then because that was like 2019, and then obviously we didn't travel anywhere, and then 2020. And I, to be honest, like I kind of never want to fly.
Get back on that horse.
I'm just like, I'm done. Yeah, cool. Like, where can we see within Canada and on land? I guess we could always take a boat, but even the thought of being on like a cruise ship out in the middle of the ocean, because Lennox and I were watching like cargo ship storms the other day, and I was like, yeah, I just don't think I really want to be out there either. But anyways, I'm not here to talk about living life in fear.
No.
But there's definitely these aspects of like having to get out of your comfort zone. And where I'm going with that one is that we had Lennox, but we didn't have him with us. Like he stayed at home with my mom, and we were gone for a week for a wedding. And that sucked. Like I was just like, we're going to leave our kid behind. Like we are dying in a plane crash. And all I could think about was Lennox. Like I was just like, I can't believe this is how this is going down, literally. And so it wasn't in the frick because that happened so quick too. And the thing is that it happened out of nowhere. You know how generally you'll be like flying along and there, like the pilots will come on and like the seatbelt light will come on, and then they'll be like, you know, we're approaching some turbulence, blah, 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 blah. So you're like, oh, okay, cool. They know what they're doing. They got this. They didn't do that. Like the waitress, the
stewardess,
flight attendants were like handing out snacks, and it just came out of nowhere. Like I remember looking out the window and I was like, we're kind of like going into some crazy clouds and the seatbelt signs aren't on. Yeah. And then like people had to hold their trays, help the stewardess hold the tray because it was like,
because she was like sitting on the floor or something, right?
The cart, and she was sitting on the floor, and yeah, it's actually pretty traumatizing. I should probably work through some of those emotions because I'm realizing that they're like still coming up.
There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, but it was just like, because so then we still had so much further to go. Like we still had freaking 5 hours in the plane, and I was like, this thing cannot land fast enough. And when we landed in Calgary and came to a stop, I was like, thank fucking God, I am never doing this again. My nerves are like completely fried. And then obviously we drove home. I think it was like in a storm to get home to Lennox. And I was just like, never in my life so happy to just be at home and to see him. So traveling is awesome. There's shit that comes with it too.
Oh yeah, no, and it's nothing. Everything has its stuff, right? Like there's definitely some work involved with a lot of it.
But what I was going to say on that, and kind of the reason I brought that up, is because I seen on Instagram the other day, this lady said like, I'm not afraid to travel with my kids, but I'm afraid to travel without my kids because I don't want to die and leave them behind. And I never felt so seen and heard in my whole life because I was like, me too. And then some people were saying in the comments like, oh, you know, my friends or whatever, like never travel on the same plane. They always take separate planes in case one went down so that their kids aren't parentless and stuff like that. And I was like, oh shit. I mean, how often do you hear about plane crashes and stuff like that?
Especially you, the way you manifest things, you're going to bring that on. It's like, no, but definitely I like the kid idea. And that's part of the whole thing now. It's like, I don't think you would ever not come with us anymore. Right? Probably.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm sure we'll go places on our own again in the future, but yeah, just the thought of leaving him behind, like everything changes once you have a kid, right?
It does. It really does.
But yeah, so I have some anxiety around flying, and I think I just reignited that. But thank God I'm not planning on going anywhere for a while.
Yeah, I'll have to search around. We'll get a pilot on for a podcast and talk you through some stuff and give you their cold hard facts about statistics and I don't know how dangerous it is. It's way more dangerous being married to me than it is flying on an airplane. So
Well, and I know you've always said like driving down Highway 2 is more dangerous than
that's dodgy as, especially right now. Like, oh God.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do agree, but I'm always like, but I'm on the ground and I can hit my brakes and I can stop. It's like not in the air, especially when I'm over water. I just can't. And like your nephew just flew to the Philippines. And I remember like your sister was here and she's like, okay, now he's just taken off from Vancouver. And I'm like, okay, so all night while we're sleeping, he's literally flying over the ocean. And I'm like, oh my God. And I was trying not to like show my nerves for her, but she's like, I know, I'm just going to forget about it until he texts me that he's landed. And I'm just sitting here thinking like, oh my God, I don't think I can ever go to those places. Like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to go to Australia. Not that I want to go to Australia these days, but I just don't think I don't know if I could handle it. Even Hawaii, like it's a long distance over the ocean.
You'll be fine.
If anyone has any fly tips, I mean,
send them our way. But no, that's awesome. I think, well, let's kind of wrap that up there, but, that's awesome though. I like it. I mean, just reminiscing about that, I was like, man, we got to do some stuff here with that, right?
Yeah. And I think, why we wanted to talk about this was like to bring up the idea of adventure and play and how doing things out of your comfort zone brings you closer together. I mean, it might stir up some muck as well, but also I think it makes you feel alive. It creates endorphins. It brings you closer together. I'm sure there's oxytocin in there. But how can you do that without, like I said, traveling around the world? But you can do that everywhere. Like, a weekend out to the mountains, a day trip, a scavenger hunt around your backyard, literally, like if we're going to narrow it down to like a very simple, inexpensive task, right? But the importance of that play, that fun, keeping the adventure alive is what keeps your relationship alive. We get so caught up in the mundane aspects of life and the motions, just going through the motions, that we forget to ignite that passion again, right? And that's actually in the last module of Safe and Wild where we go deeper into that. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about.
No, that's awesome. I noticed your sweater too. What's going on with that for all the people watching on YouTube?
Yeah, so this is my love line, my love collection.
Is it on our site?
Yes. No, it's not on our site. I'm like, yes, it is. No, it's not. It's on our Instagram, because I've sourced it out. So it's through a third party. So on our Instagram bio, there's the love collection there. And then you can just order it there's a huge selection of colors and styles. And you can just order your own product directly from them and they'll ship it. They create it on demand, print it on demand, and then ship it directly to you.
Okay, awesome. And then you did touch base about Safe and Wild. So it's 6 modules. That last module we're calling it play, right? Yeah. It's play.
Yeah.
So everything's tying into that. But I mean, there's so much, there's just a lot in those modules. Like going through them and creating them is eye-opening. It was great to get into those and just to feel them all. And then obviously creating them is part of doing them and like getting those going again. It just, it feels really good. I feel very connected to you. And it really reminds a person of what you got to do to keep your relationship going through everything that's happening right now and total chaos. It's, you have your partner, you have your team, right? And it just strengthens it. So head over to larocklife.com, check out Safe and Wild, get signed up for it. We have a whole community built around it. So, I mean, that's really fun. And that's where a lot of the magic's going to happen, because once people get talking in their stories and once everyone finds their people, that's where a lot of, just to know you're not alone in a lot of these things, right? And there's so many of us share the same problems, but we always wear it that we only think it's our problem, but it's not. Everyone's going through the same stuff, really. So it's quite interesting. But yeah, let's wrap it up with that. That was fun reminiscing. And Airbnb, if you care to send over a sponsorship, feel free.
I'm going to go do some breath work to like move through my fear that I just all brought up.
Yeah, no doubt.
Dying in a plane crash.
No doubt. That's awesome. Okay, well, I love you.
I love you too.
I love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Le Rock Life Podcast and online at LaRockLife.com. Ladies, find Laura on social media at Laura LaRock and online at LauraLaRock.com. Have a request for a show topic? We love that. Send us an email at michael@LaRockLife.com or DM at LaRock Life Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review.